The ocean gives, and it takes. For trainers, working alongside orcas is a dance with danger, majestic, intelligent, and deadly. They train, guide, and trust predators built to dominate the seas. But what if that trust is shattered in an instant? Today, we uncover the stories of 3 orca attacks, where trainers were dragged beneath the waves, seconds became nightmares, and the water ran red. These are the moments the ocean tried to hide. Dawn Brancheau was not just a trainer. She was the face of SeaWorld Orlando, a symbol of grace, experience, and devotion. With over 15 years at the park, she had risen through the ranks, becoming one of the most respected professionals in the field. Guests would often stay after shows just to catch a glimpse of her. Her calm presence, athleticism, and deep bond with the whales made her stand out, especially in her work with Tilikum, the park's largest and most controversial orca. But before he became a performer, Tilikum was something else entirely. Tilikum had been taken from the wild as a calf off the coast of Iceland in 1983. He was just 2 years old when he was separated from his pod, his mother's calls echoing through the water as boats drove the group into shallow nets. He was chosen, sold, and flown across the world. At Sealand of the Pacific in Canada, Tilikum was confined to a small, dark tank with 2 older females. He was often raked, bullied, and isolated. The tank was so small that trainers had to keep him in a holding module, a dark steel enclosure barely larger than his body, for hours at a time. He lived in tanks far too small for an animal of his size. They were denied the rich social structures of orcapods, and spent years performing choreographed routines under bright lights and loud music. The stress of captivity chipped away at him until what remained was a broken version of a creature meant for the open ocean. Despite this, SeaWorld kept him in rotation, not just as a performer, but as a breeding machine. But Tilikum was no ordinary whale. Weighing over 12,000 pounds and stretching 22 feet long, he carried with him a history of aggression and a reputation that made even seasoned trainers uneasy. He had already been involved in 2 deaths before Dawn's. In 1991, Sealand trainer Kelty Byrne slipped into the pool. Tilikum and the others dragged her under repeatedly. She drowned in front of guests and staff. In 1999, a man was found dead, draped over Tilikum's back at SeaWorld, having allegedly snuck into the tank overnight. Still, Tilikum remained in shows, not for water work, but for dry interactions, feeding, hand signals, no swimming. These limited routines were seen as a compromise between safety and spectacle, and the red flags kept coming. Tilikum would ignore cues, refuse food, float listlessly for hours. He sometimes refused to separate from gates or took longer to respond to basic signals. He was known for his unpredictability, but he was also SeaWorld's most valuable asset. So the shows continued. If you're into real stories that uncover the truth behind the headlines, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. We drop deep dives like this every week. On February 24th, 2010, it was the Dine with Shamu event. Guests sat just feet from the pool, enjoying lunch while trainers demonstrated whale behaviors. Dawn was on the platform, engaging Tilikum as she had done countless times before. He responded to cues, accepted fish, and swam in slow, controlled circles. But subtle cues were missed. He didn't line up properly for one behavior, drifted sideways at another. Small deviations, easy to overlook, easy to dismiss. Still, the show went on. Then, without warning, Tilikum lunged, grabbing Dawn by the ponytail, or maybe her arm, and in an instant, everything changed. Panic erupted. Guests screamed, alarms blared, trainers rushed into action, but Tilikum was already beneath the surface, Dawn trapped in his jaws. What followed was a horrifying 40-minute ordeal. Again and again he surfaced, only to drag her under. Again and again she tried to escape, to breathe, to survive. But he wouldn't let go. The audience could do nothing but watch. Tillicum's power was overwhelming. He ruled the pool. The outcome was already written.
She sat down with her supervisor and they listed the incident on the incident report, that incident report never made it into the incident log.
Trainers rushed in, alarms rang out. Bystanders were ushered away. Laura Surovic, SeaWorld's assistant curator and a close friend of Dawn, was among the first to arrive. In police reports, she described the scene. Tillicum treated Brancheau's body as his possession. They tried emergency recall signals to move Tillicum away, but he wouldn't budge. He swam back and forth, circling Dawn and keeping everyone at bay. Staff stood ready with stretchers, oxygen tanks, defibrillators, but no one could enter the water. The whale refused to release her. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Laura, mere feet from the pool, could do nothing but watch. Dawn's body was unrecognizable. Her scalp had been torn away, her jaw fractured, one of her arms severed. Tillicum remained possessive, circling her body, holding her as if he still wasn't ready to let her go. Trainers deployed nets, tossed food, gave every signal they knew. But it took a painfully long time to retrieve her, and by the time they did, it was already over. The official autopsy was devastating. Drowning, yes, but also massive blunt force trauma. Her ribs and sternum were crushed, her spine fractured, her liver was torn. These were the kinds of injuries seen in high-speed car crashes, not marine parks. But this wasn't a freak accident. It was the predictable result of years of overlooked warnings. After Dawn's death, SeaWorld scrambled to protect its image. Initial statements hinted at trainer error, that she had gotten too close or broken protocol. Some blamed her ponytail, but those who knew her knew the truth. Dawn was meticulous. She followed the rules. If she was with Tillicum that day, it was because SeaWorld authorized it. The system had failed her.
SeaWorld has manipulated the investigation, and we want an impartial agency to come in and investigate properly.
News outlets ran headlines around the clock. Footage circulated, questions mounted. And then came Blackfish. The 2013 documentary shattered the image SeaWorld had spent decades creating. Through raw interviews and leaked documents, the truth was undeniable. Tillicum wasn't a monster. He was broken, a product of captivity. And SeaWorld paid the price. Attendance plummeted, stocks fell, public trust collapsed. If this story hit you hard, like, share, and subscribe to help more people see the truth behind the tanks. These stories deserve to be heard. They ended the orca breeding, phased out theatrical shows, promised change. But for Dawn and Tillicum, it was too late. Tillicum spent his final years alone, circling the same tank, day after day, until he died in 2017. No freedom, no pod, just silence. To many, he had died long before his body gave out. Dawn Brancheau wasn't reckless. She was SeaWorld's best. But even the most experienced hands can't hold back the weight of a broken system. Her death and Alexis Martínez's before hers weren't freak accidents. They were warnings, ignored until it was too late. This wasn't just about one whale or one woman. It was about captivity and the silence that let it continue. Tillicum's deadly history didn't end with Dawn. In another ocean, another trainer would face a different kind of horror, proving that even young orcas, bred and confined in captivity, could turn deadly.
A killer whale grabbed a trainer who'd always dreamed of working with orcas.
The world was in shock when another beloved trainer, Alexis Martínez, lost his life during a session with the orca Cato. What happened in those final moments remains deeply unsettling, and the truth is darker than anyone could imagine.
Se quejaba de eso, de estar cansado, y yo pues le intentaba quitar un poco de...
The world was still reeling from the brutal death of Dawn Brancheau when another tragedy struck, one that was quietly buried beneath the surface. Alexis Martínez was 29 years old, in the prime of his life, full of passion, ambition, and an unwavering love for animals. To the world, he was a marine mammal trainer. But to those who knew him, he was so much more: compassionate, driven, and deeply respected. Alexis had dedicated his adult life to understanding the creatures he worked with every single day. He worked at Loro Parque, a marine zoo in Tenerife, one of Spain's Canary Islands, a popular tourist destination known for its beaches, warm climate, and ocean attractions. Alexis had been with the park for years, becoming one of its most skilled trainers. He was selected to work directly with the orcas, a role requiring intense dedication, physical strength, and absolute trust between human and animal. At just 29, he had already spent years building trust with these massive, intelligent animals, especially Quito, a young male orca. The orcas at Loro Parque weren't wild. They were bred and trained in captivity. Young, powerful whales transferred from SeaWorld Orlando under a breeding and loan agreement. Among those whales was Quito, a large male already showing signs of independence and unpredictability. Still, Alexis remained confident. Known to be calm under pressure and deeply attuned to the animal's moods and behaviors, his colleagues described him as committed and fearless, the kind of trainer you wanted by your side during the most difficult sessions. Trainers noted Quito was physically impressive, long, muscular, and dominant, but emotionally distant. His behavior was often unpredictable. At times, he refused to follow cues. At others, he became unresponsive or showed signs of aggression. Internal reports flagged these issues, yet the pressures of show schedules and public demand meant Quito remained in regular rotation, in performances and waterwork sessions. Just weeks before the incident, Quito had shown troubling signs. He had become less reliable in responding to hand signals. He acted more independently, sometimes ignoring trainers during rehearsals. During one session, he exhibited body language that made other trainers uneasy, surfacing without being asked, exhaling sharply, and deviating from routine movements. Despite these behaviors, Quito was still deemed safe for close contact work. No one had ever been seriously injured by him. He had never attacked a trainer before. The assumption was he was simply moody, temperamental, but manageable. But in captivity, assumptions can be deadly. In just a few hours, Quito would remind everyone how little control humans truly have over a 6,600-pound predator confined to a pool. The warning signs had been there all along. Trainers had documented concerning behaviors from Quito for months. In any other high-risk industry, these would have triggered a serious re-evaluation of safety protocols. But in marine entertainment, where performance schedules and public image take precedence, those warnings were quietly absorbed, rationalized, and ultimately ignored. But on December 24, 2009, just hours before a planned Christmas show, something went wrong. That day, Martínez was in the water, rehearsing an underwater routine with Quito. It was supposed to be smooth, familiar, routine, but from the beginning, the orca wasn't responding as expected. He ignored signals, refused to follow the cues. Other trainers intervened, trying desperately to regain control. For a brief moment, there was hope. Quito surfaced. He took a breath. Then he plunged down to the bottom of the pool, where Alexis Martínez still was. In the next few moments, which must have felt like an eternity, Quito pinned Martínez underwater, not with aggression, but with terrifying force. Using the tip of his snout, the whale held him down. The water grew still, then red. Attempts were made to distract Quito, to lure him away. A net was finally used to separate him from the trainer's body, but it was too late. When they recovered Alexis Martínez, he was already gone. An official autopsy by the Canary Islands authorities revealed stark, devastating findings. This was no mere accident, no misjudged maneuver. Alexis died from catastrophic injuries, leaving little doubt about the violence of the attack. The report described severe blunt force trauma to the chest and abdomen. Multiple ribs were broken, some snapped in half, and there were fractures in the sternum and vertebrae. The immense pressure from Quito's impact tore through Alexis's internal organs. His liver was ruptured, a wound usually seen only in high-speed car crashes or crushing trauma. There was massive hemorrhaging throughout his abdominal cavity. Both lungs had collapsed. The report also showed signs of drowning. Despite his swimming experience, Alexis never stood a chance. Quito's attack rendered him instantly incapacitated, stripped of the ability to fight back or scream for help. But the autopsy went beyond the physical injuries. It pointed to a broader failure of operational safety. According to Canary Islands labor authorities, Alexis's death was a workplace accident caused by exposure to an unsafe animal, one known for aggression. This raised urgent questions. If Quito showed warning signs, why was he allowed in close contact training? Why was Alexis in the water with an animal flagged as difficult to control? Martinez became one of only 4 people in recorded history to be killed by a captive orca. But what caused Quito, a whale trained daily, controlled and rehearsed, to snap? Some argue it was confusion, others say it was frustration, but many believe it was something far deeper, a psychological fracture born of captivity. Quito wasn't born in the wild, he was born in SeaWorld, shipped to Loro Parque as part of a breeding and performance agreement, and like Tilikum, Quito had lived his life in artificial conditions, small tanks, choreographed routines, and isolation from the natural rhythms of the ocean. He wasn't just performing, he was surviving. Was it aggression or a mistake? The incident was kept quiet, too quiet. Only after Brancheau's death did the full details come to light. Loro Parque and SeaWorld initially downplayed the cause. They framed it as a trainer error, not a system failure. But behind the scenes, trainers knew the truth. Quito had exhibited signs of stress before. Internal documents later revealed that Quito was considered uncontrollable and showed signs of mild aggression during training. Behavioral evaluations described him as socially isolated, dominant, and inconsistent in responses. And the protocols in place hadn't worked. Martinez's death wasn't just tragic, it was preventable. But his name never made headlines like Dawn's did. No massive documentary, no protests, no policy shifts, just another warning ignored. Orcas don't belong in tanks. They belong in the sea, with their pods, their freedom, and their dignity. Alexis Martínez should not be forgotten, and Quito should never have been there in the first place. Even years of trust and training couldn't prevent tragedy. Alexis Martínez's death revealed the hidden dangers of captivity, but for Sam Collins, working with a wild-caught orca would prove that no bond is unbreakable. The world would never forget. In the shimmering blue of the tank, something moved, a trainer, a whale, a bond that looked unshakable, until, in one terrible instant, it broke. In the wild, orcas are sovereign. They roam endless oceans, carving paths through open water with power and grace. They live in lifelong pods, families bound by loyalty and song. Together they hunt, travel, and raise their young. They are not killers by nature. They are guardians of the sea, born to be free. Captivity shatters that world. The vast becomes a cage. The songs fade into silence. A calf is torn from her mother, screaming into the waves, only to be dropped into a concrete pool where walls echo her cries back at her. The routines, the crowds, the blaring music, none of it replaces what was stolen. Even the strongest spirit can fracture when the ocean is stripped away. That is where Luna's story began, not in the wild, but in a tank. Her life in confinement was a slow unraveling. What looked like a smile to the crowds was, in truth, a wound, one that deepened every day. Sam Collins had loved the ocean since he was a boy. At 34, he'd spent over a decade working with Luna, a wild-caught orca. He'd raised her since she was a calf, fed her by hand, and taught her every trick. They swam together daily, her sleek black and white body gliding beside his, her eyes fixed on him as if he held the secrets of the sea. To Sam, Luna wasn't just an animal, she was family. But Luna wasn't born in a tank. She'd been ripped from the icy waters of the North Atlantic as a baby, screaming for her mother as nets pulled her away. Sam never spoke of that. He focused on the bond they built, the way Luna bumped his palm for fish, the way she leapt on command, and the way she seemed to trust him. The crowd didn't know her past. They called her the smiling whale, clapping as she flipped and splashed. But lately, Luna had changed. At night, she slammed her head against the concrete walls. She refused meals. Her silence in the water was deafening, a stark reminder that orcas are meant to live wild, in tight family pods, not in isolation. Sam would find her floating listlessly, staring at the concrete sky. He'd whisper, "It's okay, girl," and she'd nuzzle his hand, a flicker of the old Luna. Then came May 7th. It was a bright and glorious afternoon at Ocean View Marine Park, where the air buzzed with excitement as families and friends filled the grandstands, laughter and applause echoing like music. Sam Collins, the park's renowned orca trainer, stood at the center of the arena, his heart swelling with pride as he waved to the audience. For a decade, he had forged an extraordinary bond with Luna, the magnificent black and white killer whale that had become the star of the show. To everyone around them, they were not just a trainer and a performer, they were best friends, united in an unbreakable partnership. The show started with Luna jumping high out of the water. The crowd cheered loudly as the big whale splashed back down. Sam smiled at the audience, thinking everything was going as smoothly as he had planned. But Luna hadn't been acting normal. She swam too fast and didn't always listen to Sam's signals. Her eyes looked different, wilder, like she wasn't really seeing him anymore. When she came up close, Sam could feel her body shaking with nervous energy. The happy show music kept playing, but Sam felt something was off. Luna was moving strangely, splashing harder than she needed to. She kept looking past Sam, like she wanted to be somewhere else. The tricks they'd done together 100 times before now seemed to confuse her. If this already has you on edge, make sure you're subscribed, because what's coming next is even darker. Sam tried to stay calm, but he and the whole crowd felt something strange in Luna's behavior. This wasn't the Luna he knew. Something was off. Luna was behaving aggressively today. As the finale approached, Sam took a deep breath and plunged into the chilly water of the tank, feeling the sharp contrast against his warm skin. The water enveloped him, and as he surfaced, Luna approached with a speed that set alarm bells ringing in his mind. She glided closer, alarmingly close, her enormous body brushing against him in an intimate dance that felt troubled with tension. He attempted to signal her to pull back, but she ignored his gestures, her piercing gaze locked onto him, leaving him with a sinking feeling of dread. Suddenly, Luna's mouth opened. Rows of sharp teeth flashed. She bit down hard on Sam's leg. Blood exploded into the water. The audience was tense in this dead silence. They couldn't comprehend what was really going on. Screams ripped through the air. Sam fought. He punched. He kicked. Luna dragged him deeper, shaking him like a toy. The tank turned red. The crowd was traumatized to see the blood. Trainers immediately threw ropes amid chaos and blew whistles. But Luna wouldn't let go. Her tail wiggled, shaking the water into a foamy nightmare. If you're still here through the chaos, hit like and subscribe, because the truth behind this attack will change how you see orcas forever. Parents covered their children's eyes while they looked worried and disturbed. A few children screamed in shock as they witnessed the horror that unfolded. Sam's hand broke the surface once and then vanished. Rescue divers jumped in. Sadly, they were too late. When they pulled Sam out, his body was limp. Blood soaked his wetsuit. It was an absolute terror that the audience witnessed on that day. Luna circled the tank, her fin slicing the water like a blade. The park closed that night. News channels showed the story everywhere with headlines like, Orca attack, wild animals unpredictable. Reporters interviewed experts who explained, orcas are wild animals. They cannot be tamed by morning. Everyone was talking about what had happened. The news kept showing the same clip. The dark water, the splashing, then silence and blood. But the truth was even darker than anyone could have anticipated. Luna hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't accidentally hurt him in a moment of chaotic excitement. No, she consciously chose to attack. After years of performing under the glaring lights, executing trick after trick for the enthusiastic crowds, a hidden instinct within her snapped back to the surface. The ocean's most cunning predator instinctively remembered her true nature. A killer. The memorial service was held at the edge of the tank where Sam had taken his final breath. Soft pastel flowers drifted on the water's surface, their petals trembling with each ripple, a fragile tribute to a life cut short. The park, once alive with shrieks of laughter and thunderous applause, now stood in eerie silence. The empty stands, the still waters, the abandoned stage, all bore witness to a joy that would never return. The gates were locked forever. And Luna? She was condemned to a lonely existence in a dim concrete pool, hidden away from the crowds that had once cheered her name. The vibrant music, the flashing lights, the cries of wonder, all replaced by a crushing, endless quiet. No more jumps, no more tricks, no more hands reaching out to touch the glass in awe. Sam's tragedy wasn't about a killer whale, it was about a wild soul pushed too far. Luna didn't hate him, she was just a ghost of the ocean, screaming for a home she'd never see again. Let's respect wild animals. They deserve to live free, as they were meant to. Tributes poured in for Sam, who had dedicated his life to working with these magnificent creatures. He lost his life doing what he loved most, connecting with the ocean's most intelligent animal, the orca, Luna. Friends and colleagues remembered Sam's passion and how he always said the orcas were misunderstood. Yet life remains unpredictable even for experienced trainers. All these incidents, yet the question remains, how many more lives will be risked before we truly understand the cost of keeping orcas in captivity? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below and make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.